it's Jasma, and today we're going to make Valentine's Day cake pops. I already have 3 videos before this showing you how to make a white chocolate mousse, a chiffon cake, and how to assemble those pieces together to make a very pretty buttercream flour cake. So make sure to go and check those videos out. Today the cake that I am using is the cake scraps that I cut off the chiffon cake to make the buttercream flour cake. Making cake pops are a very great way to use up those cake scraps instead of wasting them. These are going to be for Valentine's Day, so they're going to be very pretty and very delicious. So let's get started. For the ingredients you will need 250 grams of cake of your choice, 1 cup of white and red chocolate candy melts, and 4 or more tablespoons of frosting of your choice. First off, we're going to make the dough for the cake pops. So I have 250 grams of cake here. This is the cake scraps that I cut off a chiffon cake, and you could change the amount if you like, and you could also use whatever type of cake you like. It doesn't have to be a chiffon cake. I'm going to crumble it up in a blender today. You could also use a food processor or do it by hand, but I like using a blender because it tends to crumble it up really finely, which makes a really smooth cake pop. So I'm just going to break up the pieces of cake and pop it into the blender. And don't worry if the cake is really dry, it doesn't matter because we're going to add frosting to this and it will taste really good in the end. And I'll just blend this up until it forms nice and fine crumbs. This is now formed really fine crumbs. You can see everything is one color and there are no more larger bits of cake inside of here. So we can start adding in the frosting and bringing the dough together. Now, I'm going to be using some cream cheese frosting today, but you could use whatever type of frosting. You could use buttercream or chocolate ganache, as long as it can firm up in the fridge. So the amount of frosting that you're going to add into your cake to form a dough will depend on how dry the cake is and how much cake you have. So starting out, I'm going to add in around a tablespoon of this, and add more if I need to. This is not a lot of cake, so I don't need to add a lot of frosting. And you only want to add the amount that you need, because if you add too much, it's going to be too soft and you won't be able to make a dough. And now just blend it until all the frosting has disappeared into the cake. The cake is still really crumbly, so clearly 1 tablespoon of frosting is not enough. So I'm just going to add a little more. And make sure you scrape down the side and the bottom of the blender to make sure that everything is mixed together. And this will start to clump up. Today I used 4 tablespoons of the frosting in total, but again you could change the amount according to how dry your cake is and how much cake you have. The dough is now ready. You can see it has come together, and when you press it with your spatula it should hold its shape, and you can just test it by rolling it into a ball, and if it doesn't fall apart in your hands then it is ready. So I'm just going to dump this out into a bowl. Once the cake dough is ready, we can start to roll it into little balls. So today I'm going to be using a mini ice cream scoop to measure out the cake dough to make sure each cake pop is the same size. If you don't have a mini ice cream scoop like this, you could also just use a tablespoon to measure it out. And you could also eyeball it if you like to, but I just want them to be the same size. I like to squeeze a little bit between my hands to make sure it's nice and packed, and then start to roll it out. And if you added enough frosting, you can see it should be able to stay a ball when you're rolling it between your hands, and it should not just start to crumble. If it starts to crumble, that means you did not add enough frosting, so you might want to knead some more frosting into the dough. You could also use your fingertips to shape the dough a little better. And I'm making my cake pops quite small today, but you can make it bigger if you like to. If you find that it's a little hard to roll into a bowl, you could always go back in and add more frosting. I made 6 round cake pops, and I'm going to use this heart mold to make some heart-shaped cake pops for Valentine's Day. So the same process, I'm going to measure out the cake dough because I still want them to be the same size. And if you don't have the heart mold like this, I will show you how to mold it by hand later. Once I measured it out, just stuff it into the mold. I like to break it up a little bit so I can pack it in nice and tight, so it has a really nice heart shape in the end. And depending on the size of the mold, you might not use a whole tablespoon of the cake dough, but that's okay. Just still try to make it about the same size. And pack it in nice and tight so it doesn't break apart later when you unmold it. Pack it in nice and tight, and you can make as much as you like. I have my cake pops in the heart-shaped mold. I pressed it down really tight. So now I could flip it out, and if you feel like it's going to break apart, you could pop it into the freezer for it to chill just for around 5 minutes or so, but I'm just going to pop it straight out. You can see it has a really nice shape. Now I'm just going to show you how to form a heart by hand. So first of all, roll the dough into a ball. Pinch one corner to form sort of a raindrop shape, like that. And then use your finger to sort of push down the rounded edge. You could do this by hand, but I really suggest you to use a mold because the shape comes out much better. Now we could pop this into the fridge for it to firm up while we melt the chocolate. I have some red chocolate candy melts and some white chocolate candy melts, and I'm going to place them into the microwave for 45 seconds and stirring in between each time. The white chocolate has melted. There are still some lumps, but I will stir that until it has completely disappeared. And you can see this is quite thick and not suitable for dipping. So I'm going to add in a little bit of coconut oil to thin it out. You could also use canola if you want. I added in around half a teaspoon of coconut oil. I stirred it until it has completely melted into the chocolate. And you can see it is now at a much better consistency. It's a lot thinner, and it will make it a lot easier to dip. And you want both colors to be at the same consistency. The chocolate is now melted, so I'm just going to take the cake pops out of the fridge so we could attach the lollipop sticks. The cake pops has chilled in the fridge for around 5 minutes. It is now nice and firm, and I'm going to attach the lollipop sticks to it. So you want to dip it in a little bit of chocolate at first, just a little bit, not too much. And I'll take a ball and just stick the stick right in. You can see the chocolate will pool around the stick, and this will make sure that the stick stays in the ball. You can find lollipop sticks in your local craft store. You want to stick the stick around halfway into the ball. I've sticked all of the lollipop sticks into the round cake pops, and I'm going to show you how to attach them to the heart ones. So this is going to be a little bit different. We're not going to stick the stick into the cake pop, we're going to attach it to the back of it. You want to stick it a little bit more, and we're going to stick it right onto the back. And you want to sort of push it in a little bit, but the chocolate will solidify and it will stay. So you kind of have to hold it a little bit until it starts to harden. And something else I like to do is sort of just use my fingers to spread out that chocolate a little bit so it's attached to more of the cake pop. It's a little ugly now, but we will dip this into more chocolate so you won't be able to see this. The cake pops has chilled in the fridge for another 5 minutes or so. It has now firmed up and the chocolate has set so I can hold it up without the cake pop falling off. So now before we dip it into the chocolate, we're going to seal up some of these really big cracks in the cake pops. Now if you don't seal it, it will cause the chocolate coating to crack later on. So to fix it, it is very easy. Just take a little bit of the chocolate coating, spoon it onto the crack. I'm just going to patch it until it is nice and sealed. And I also have a styrofoam block here, which I will stick the cake pops into to make sure that the chocolate coating sets upright so it doesn't have like a flat surface later on. So now we can start to coat the cake pops in the chocolate. Make sure that your chocolate coating is nice and thin so you could shake off the excess off the cake pop really easily. And I take a cake pop and insert it straight into the chocolate. I like to just rotate it around a little bit. This is why it is very important that you have a really deep container. And now just lift it straight up and tap your wrist. And do not tap the stick on the side of the cup because the cake pop will fall off. So tap your wrist for the excess chocolate to fall off. Once it stops falling off, lift it upright. Now just stick the cake pop into the styrofoam block until the chocolate sets. I'm filling a Ziploc bag with some white chocolate candy melts. so I can form a marbling effect on the cake pops. So just twist the bag until it's close, and you want to make sure that both chocolates are at the same consistency and at the same temperature to make sure that it comes out right. Now snip off a tip. Now drizzle it over the red in a zigzag motion. And it is very important that you have a wide container here. And go across in a different direction. And you can use different colors if you want to. I'm just sticking with red and white today for Valentine's Day. I don't want to tap this too much because I don't want to mess up the design. I feel like it's going to be fine. This time I'm going to marble a heart. Make sure it's fully covered in chocolate. I like to jiggle the cup around. And pick it right up. And the best thing to do is to not think too much about this, because it's going to come out different every single time. If you see any big air pockets like this, make sure to pop it with a toothpick so it doesn't affect the final look. And you can dip it back into the chocolate a little bit if you like to. Now I usually find that I don't need to pop these because they usually pop themselves when I'm tapping it, but if it doesn't, make sure you pop them. If you feel like you could see through the layer of chocolate, you could double dip them, but just make sure they're not very thick layers. If you make the layers way too thick, it would be a really hard shell, and it would be really hard to bite into the cake pop. Now I'm going to do the marbling on the white chocolate with the red chocolate. You can really play around with the colors as well. So I mixed up the white and the red after I marbled it, and I'm going to make a pink heart. You can decorate the cake pops however you like. Here I'm piping some few designs onto the cake pops with chocolate, but you could also use sprinkles to decorate it. That's how you make Valentine's Day cake pops. These are a great way to use up cake scraps. They are very delicious and very adorable, and you can wrap them up in little bags, tie it up with ribbons, and give to your friends and family for Valentine's Day. So I really hope you can try these out. Thanks for watching, and see you guys next time.